Welcome to the special episode of Takedown with Chris Hansen. Some of you may recognize me. I'm Chris's wife, but I'm also producer here at TruBlu, and I have all the inside information on Takedown. We're going to be taking a look and talking about some of the highlights and memorable moments from the first 3 seasons of Takedown with Chris Hansen here on TruBlu. And Chris will be answering your questions live. I have always wanted to say this. Chris, why don't you come and take a seat?
And Gabrielle, you're the only one who can tell me to take a seat.
I better be the only one.
But I have the transcript.
Okay, so do I. So, Chris, I think tonight will be fun because I feel like I get the behind the scenes. You go off and do these shoots, and you're traveling to do them, and you're staying in touch with me the entire time. A couple different reasons, because there's some downtime while decoys are chatting. Exactly. And you're waiting there. And also, I do get a little nervous and anxious about who's going to show up. So those little check-ins with me, who's coming, who's on the way, what the time frame is, and then there's quiet.
And quite honestly, it's a way of me being able to decompress and say, you would not believe what just happened here.
Those are the texts after the lull in our conversation.
Yeah, and as you know, we can go many hours without having anybody show up at our sting house. And then all of a sudden, as we had in Michigan a few weeks back, 4 guys in 5 hours.
Yes.
And it's crazy.
It was crazy.
And you see the characters who walk in, it's still mind-boggling to me, and you and I have had this discussion, that after 19 years of doing predator investigations, we still have guys show up. And guys who shock me, doctors, businessmen, guys from all walks of life, and you've seen them all, and you've heard the stories from behind the scenes.
And I'm always surprised, like you'll say, you know, we're chatting with this guy, and some of them I'm almost like, there's no way that he's really gonna show up.
And sometimes they don't.
Right, and thank God, really, you know. But I'll be like, maybe you're being set up with the way this chat sounds back and forth, and then they show up, and then my texts from you, the next ones are, OMG, you're not gonna believe this. This one's a first.
Yeah.
You know, every single one, so.
Well, we have such an example
Yes, we do.
start
So
off the
first
show.
of all, Chris is going to be taking questions live tonight, so feel free to drop them in the comments, and hopefully we can get to all of them. The first one we're going to talk about was from the Takedown in Polk County, Florida. And we call him Fanboy because turns out he was a fanboy. What can you tell us about this?
This is Matthew Bongine. Now, this guy was in Orlando, which is just outside of Polk County.
Okay.
And he was there on a business trip. But he spent this particular evening chatting online with someone he thought was the mother of a 12-year-old girl, and then the 12-year-old girl. And he has this fantasy that he plays out online about meeting the mom, going swimming with the girl, and then having sex with the girl. He even references in the chat, could this be a sting operation? Could this be a Chris Hansen type operation?
Right.
And yet he shows up anyway.
Which I'm always surprised because a lot of them recognize you. Most of them recognize you, I feel like. And even in the chat, like you just said, they'll say, you know, I hope this isn't a Chris Hansen thing, whatever. And then
And
ding
as
dong.
we're going to see here in a second,
Right.
in the first clip,
Right.
he recognizes me in among the most creepy ways
The smile.
I've ever
Yeah,
experienced.
the smile and the laugh when he realizes it's you. It's like he's excited and then like, oh no.
Here it comes.
Yes.
Let's take a look.
Have a seat right over there, okay?
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
Oh, not so great.
What happened? How'd you get here tonight?
Number of wrong decisions.
Number of wrong decisions. Take me through it. Help me to understand. So you're how old, Matt? 40?
46.
46.
Basically, I was coming in to see if you guys.
You're going to see if it was going to be me.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned in the chat about my predator investigations and me by name.
Yes.
What made you ask if this was a Chris Hansen predator investigation?
I'd actually seen some of them.
You've seen my shows on the TV.
Yes, sir.
And do you like the shows?
You always think that's not me.
You watch the shows,
Right.
my predator investigations, and you say, that's not me. You ever make fun of those guys?
Yes.
Now you are one of those guys.
It's pretty insightful into a child predator, the conversation that you have.
Well, exactly, because on the one hand, he's trying to mitigate what he's done. He's trying to apologize up to a point, hoping all along that somehow, some way, he's going to get out of this, right? And if he can't get out of it, he's going to make it look like it's not as bad as it really is. Imagine coming to the reality that you're going to be not only charged with attempting to solicit a child online for sex, be on video showing up, arrested, and then being confronted by me. That's not a great night.
No.
No matter who you are. And for this guy, especially when you consider the graphic nature of this chat, there's no mistaking what he wanted from a 12-year-old girl.
Right. And I don't think that they realize that you have the chat or they forget. That,
Well, they think they can work their way through. A lot of things are going on in their mind at the same time. So it's like, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go here. In Fanboy's case, he's going to try to convince me, and we'll see this in the next clip, that
Right.
he had trauma in his life, that because he was a shy nerd, he didn't have a sexual experience till he was in his 20s. So he missed out. Well, we're talking about a 12-year-old girl here.
right.
And this weird mom-daughter fetish that we see from time to time in these investigations, which is very disturbing.
Yes. Well, let's take a look at the next clip.
Has this been a fantasy of yours for some time?
Yes.
And where does that come from?
You make excuses. I'm not laughing at.
I know it's an anxious situation. I'm not forgiving it by any stretch, but I understand that you're...
when you psychoanalyze yourself, let's say, there's many factors that leads into the fact that nerd in high school, virgin until I was 20, did I miss out on something? And then that builds up in the back of your head, and then leads to this.
How long has this been a fantasy for you, Matt?
I guess you could say off and on 15 years.
Have you ever seen a therapist about it? Have you ever sought help for it?
Yes.
So you've gone to therapy.
Yes.
Did that help you?
For 8 years.
And then what happened?
The girlfriend that I had that pushed me into therapy, she passed away last year.
I mean, I have a daughter,
Right.
and it literally gives me chills to listen to something like that.
And again, he's trying to create sympathy. He talks about being with a woman, his fiance, who encouraged him to get therapy, which he did, and then she passes away, and he claims that was some sort of triggering event. But when I dug a little deeper, it comes out that she has a younger daughter, or had a younger daughter, and that he had had discussions and fantasies of including that daughter in their relationship. So you have to wonder at some point, is there anything that can be done for Fanboy to keep him from offending again?
There's a couple points when you're questioning him where it's almost like his personality changes a little bit and his wheels are spinning to find like the next thing to say.
He's at the same time seemingly excited to be on my show.
Right, right.
Trying to talk his way out of it. And you even see this in what's happened in court since then. He's,
what has happened?
Well,
since then?
it's a good question. He initially pleaded guilty, or was getting ready to plead guilty in a plea agreement, and now he's withdrawn that plea and is apparently headed to trial. So we'll see it all play out in trial. The evidence is strong.
Right.
I mean, Polk County, as with the other jurisdictions with which we work, these cases are solid just from the chats, the showing up, the confession, the story they tell. That just adds on to it.
Right. Well, let's take some questions from the audience.
Excellent.
We'll send it to Sean and take some
Sean
questions.
Reck, my partner and co-founder of TruBlu, is standing by in the studio next to us. Sean, good evening.
Hello, Chris and Gabrielle. How are you?
Good.
Excellent, thank you.
I want to thank all the viewers who tuned in. Everybody on YouTube should know that TruBlu, that has 150 movies, 40 episodes of, or 30 episodes of Takedown, and a lot of other programs, is less than $5 a month. So we hope you'll consider supporting it. If we read your question, make sure you send us your shirt size, because you're going to receive a TruBlu t-shirt. So if you want a TruBlu t-shirt and we read your question, please send us your size. If you're a subscriber, we'll already have your address. If you're a YouTube subscriber, you'll have to send your address to Sean@transitionstudios.com. Chris, this question's for you. This is from Brooke. Hi, Chris. My question is, when the predators come to the sting houses and say they knew it was a setup and knew they'd get in trouble, what thoughts go through your head when they say those lies, considering we knew the real reason? And keep up the amazing work.
That's an incredible question, Brooke, and one that I get occasionally. What goes through my mind is that it shows the compulsion and the drive of somebody who is wired this way to offend. If you think it's going to be a Chris Hansen takedown investigation, if you think it's going to be a law enforcement investigation in a jurisdiction where these things take place with some frequency, and you show up anyway, what does that say to you about the deliberate nature of somebody who wants to have sex with a child? And it crosses all sociographic, demographic borderlines. Guys from all walks of life do this. And if our investigations aren't a deterrent, I don't know what is. It's public embarrassment. And we see guys, we hear stories, Sean, all the time, and you hear them too, of guys who get busted by law enforcement when we're not there. And they're obviously disturbed that they've been arrested. They say they're sorry. But the next question is Chris Hansen here? You know, but they don't want to be on television. They don't want to be embarrassed. So I don't know what more we can do except for to keep doing these investigations. And as you know, we've adopted different strategies over the course of these 19 years. We work more closely, we collaborate more closely with law enforcement because we want to ensure that we're socially responsible. The first two investigations we did 19 years ago, the guys walked out of there. Now, some were prosecuted after the fact, but we didn't have this collaboration with law enforcement, and now we do. So virtually all of them are successfully prosecuted because of the nature of these cases.
Right.
Got one more. Mo Games wrote, and this is kind of a current event, how do you feel about the Dalai Lama doing what he did? He ironically was having a seat when the felony took place.
You know, that's really a good question. And Gabriel and I have talked about this, and I've been asked about this countless times over the last few days. I can't imagine what the Dalai Lama was thinking if, as the video suggests and the report suggests, that he told the young boy to suck his tongue. I can think of no religious part of this that would make any sense. It certainly isn't like giving a kid a hug or, you know, giving the kid a blessing. It's really, really disturbing. So he's apologized, but I just, is this guy so isolated from reality that he thought that somehow this was okay? Was he delusional? Did he have low blood sugar? Is he a problem? And I just don't understand.
I can't imagine an answer that would make me feel like it was okay.
And you know what happens after something like this? The Chris Hansen memes come out, and
right.
You know, I'm poking my nose out of everywhere surrounding the Dalai Lama. And you know, you want to think that this is a guy who has been a spiritual leader to millions and millions of people around the world, but telling a boy to suck your tongue, I just can't. I can't get my arms around that. And I think there's more that we're going to find out there.
I hope.
I'm hoping and praying that there's a rational explanation for it, but I don't see it at this point.
Right. All right. Thanks, Sean. We will come back to you a little bit later in the evening. So, Chris, the next couple investigations take place in, or we're going to go on with Polk County, Florida. And you have had a relationship with Sheriff Grady Judd for a long time. How did the two of you meet?
You know, it's a great story, and it goes back 30-some years, almost 40 years, actually. So Grady Judd, who most people know, is a very high-profile sheriff. He's been sheriff for 25 years, and he's been with the Polk County Sheriff's Department for 50, joined the department at 19. I was a reporter in Tampa, Florida, from 1982 to 1984. And during the course of that time, a guy came forward to me saying he had been poisoned working in the orange groves by an insecticide. His name was Ernest Christian. Met with him a couple times at the station, couldn't really finish the story or get what I needed to, you know, verify everything he was telling me, let it go. On a Saturday night in St. Petersburg, Florida, I'm in a saloon someplace, 23 years old, having a few beers like 23-year-olds should be having in St. Petersburg, Florida. And my pager goes off. This is 1983.
There's a pager.
Pager goes off, and it's the news desk, and I say, hey, what do you need? They said, well, call Lieutenant Grady Judd at the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Call Grady Judd. He said, Chris, we got a barricaded guy here. We don't know if he's armed. We're not sure what the deal is, but his name is Ernest Christian, and he's asking for you. Can you help me out? I said, yes, Lieutenant, I'm on my way. So I go racing across the state, hour, 20 minutes away, get there, get in contact with Ernest Christian. Say, Ernest, you got to come out. It's not going to go well for you if you don't come out. So he walks out. The situation's over. And Grady Judd never forgot this. And so they had a case about a year later where they did a sting on a couple selling a baby. Like right outside a hospital in Lakeland, Florida. And I had the opportunity to put my cameraman and his camera in a trailer to watch this whole deal go down with the undercover cops. And so literally, I mean, this is 1984 now, January of 1984, so we didn't have the technology and the GoPros and the hidden cameras, so they've got carve-outs on the side of a tractor trailer. My camera's here with my guy, Rich Jaffe, and the other camera's there, and we capture this whole thing. Now, that was a huge story in January of 1984, and it made headlines, and we had the scoop. And it was thanks to my relationship with Grady Judd. So many, many years go by, we keep in contact, and when we began doing the takedown investigations, I reached out and I said, look, I know you do this kind of work. We would like to embed, collaborate with you and show this great work and have our opportunity to do some great work ourselves. And so it all worked out. And I got to say this about Grady Judd, you know, he is a high profile guy, very much law and order, as a sheriff should be, but Grady Judd's a big thinker. He spends a lot of time in his life weighing issues of how to make his area of the world better. Right. You know, he's a very bright guy, and he runs a great department, a great sheriff's office. Polk County, Florida, is the size of Rhode Island. It's a huge landmass, and it's become very populated. It's developed very quickly, and it's a very challenging area to police. You've got wealth, you've got poverty, you've got everything in between, and heat and gators, and you name it, they got it. But I think the world of Grady Judd, and I'm very appreciative of our
He has said
efforts.
some really profound things.
Oh yeah.
And then
some headline-making things.
Some funny, profound things.
Yeah.
So,
well, in fact, in the news conference, you're talking about the fanboy, Matt Bongine. Sheriff Judd coined the phrase fanboy when we talked about this. And
the way he said
it. So he has the news conference, and he says, some of the guys wouldn't talk to my detectives, but they talked to Chris Hansen. And we appreciate that.
Yeah, it's good.
He's a great guy, Grady Judd.
So one of the alleged predators that showed up in Polk County was, as we call him now, Dark Web John.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, watching this one, it's so all over the place. It almost seems like a joke in a way that he's like so all over the place. And the way he just kind of keeps talking and digging himself like deeper.
Well, he's
deeper.
tweaking.
Well, he really was tweaking. And, you know, says he's doing his own investigation on this investigation. So let's take a look at that clip.
I'm very, 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 very good in IT and perusing the dark web and the deep web and going unnoticed. And the problem I had once I was told that this girl was 15 was
14 actually. She was
14.
Yeah.
Was no, you're wrong.
Why did you?
Because I have a lot of inside sources. Also, I've done a lot of sheriffs and Sarasota PD's alarm systems. And
so you've done a lot of work for law enforcement.
Yeah, my mom's an assistant chief of police.
Oh, where was your mom? Assistant
Bridgeport, Connecticut.
in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
And now she works for missing persons for Sarasota and the sheriff's office.
So were you ever in law enforcement yourself?
No.
But your mom has been in law enforcement.
My mom was in 32 years, yeah.
And
so
she was
retired in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and came down here to help out missing persons.
And she was deputy police chief in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Assistant chief.
Assistant chief of police in Bridgeport, Connecticut. That's a big job.
Yeah. So this would be the first time I've ever had a cup song. But yeah, so what I was able to find through my source was that I wasn't speaking to a 14-year-old.
Okay, so
I was speaking to a detective behind a mask, pretending to be a woman who actually, through what I found, was actually over the age of 18.
So you knew that this was a sting going in.
So I knew it was a sting.
You had sources in
and
the...
I called my friend, I told him they could pull my call log.
Right.
I called my buddy, I go, listen, I got this crazy situation. I go, they're playing this office that this girl's 15. They're like, just turn around and leave. I'm like, no, you know that's not my style.
Not your style.
Not to just walk away from it. I just wanted to prove a point.
Man.
What were you thinking when he was telling you he knew this was a sting?
Well, I'm thinking that he's got to be high as a kite or, or coming down from something. And later, we learned that they found evidence of drug use, opiates, all kinds of things in his vehicle. His company vehicle, by the way, which was owned by an alarm firm, his job, Dark Web John, was to go into people's homes and businesses and install alarm systems. So he shows up to meet this teenage girl, 14, in his company van. He's driven from St. Petersburg, where his mom lives. She's a retired assistant police chief from Bridgeport, Connecticut. So here's a kid, the son of a ranking law enforcement official, you would think who would know better, who's all dusted up in this situation, and he's going to spin this wild tale of surfing the dark net and knowing this and knowing that, and ultimately I confront him. I say, no. They weren't even doing the chats from that meet spot, which was a hotel room.
Right.
They were doing it at sheriff's headquarters.
Right.
And so he didn't even have his story well thought.
No.
And he was coming down. I could tell, but you can see how he was touching and this, that, and he was so erratic that they never took the handcuffs off of him, as you see there during the interview. And little by little, we unpeeled the onion of his BS story.
Right. I think something that we all enjoy, and I don't know if you enjoy it as much as we do, is when you say, I'm Chris Hansen. Like, do you enjoy that as much as everybody?
Well, I honestly don't think about, what I'm thinking about at the time is, okay, is it now appropriate for me to tell the guy this? And I can tell sometimes that they already have figured it out, but they're not going to bring it up first. So after I get everything I possibly can out of the guy, because, as I've told you many times, anybody can jump out of the bushes or appear from behind the wall or curtain and create 10 seconds of dramatic video. My job is to get inside these guys' heads and to find out why do they do what they do. And by better understanding the mind of a predator, we can better protect our kids.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to do here. What scared the heck out of me with this guy is that he's coming down. Does he take a kid to go score with him? Right. Does he introduce this child to heroin or some other narcotic? And does it spiral into a whole other set of crimes where a kid ends up dead because this guy is jonesing for what he needs? And later on in the conversation, he's very anxious about getting his anti-anxiety medication.
Is that what he called it?
That's what he called it.
That was in the trial.
But they did examination, drug tests on everything. And it came up as opiates,
Right. Yeah, you could just tell throughout the whole thing. Let's take a look at another clip of Dark Web John.
I don't think I'm the one not being truthful here, John. And do you want to know why? Because I'm Chris Hansen.
I know you are.
And I do stories on adults who try to meet kids online for sex.
And usually you actually do it right, where there's actually a child.
And this is wrong. Why?
Well, where's the child? That's my question. You want to? All right, we can run it back. Go ahead, run it back.
But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
There was somebody posing as a
someone
child.
That's imaginary. That's 12 years old and makes it real. Go ahead.
It's true.
Okay. So take it to the bank.
A couple things strike me about that.
First of all, how'd you keep your cool?
Well, because I have to maintain such a level of focus that, you have one shot at this.
Right.
It's not like you have a second take.
Right.
You either do it and you do it well and you do it right, and you get the goods, or it's a waste of time. And we've got all kinds of assets and resources down there for this investigation. And people always ask me, what goes through your mind before you confront one of these guys? And what really goes through my mind is, this better be good.
Right.
You better be on point, you better be on your game, you better know everything you can. And I'm often surprised, and sometimes I have to feel my way through it.
We'll see.
And I won't know where it's going until I get there. But what's going through my mind there is that this guy is, going through withdrawal,
Right.
still high. And he knows just enough about law enforcement because of what his mother did for a living that he thinks he can spin his way out of this and it's not going anywhere.
Right.
I'm not buying it. The Polk County Sheriff's Office isn't buying it. And he's going to jail.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the last clip.
At what point did you find out that this was a sting?
Once I started seeing
People tell you to get on the ground
what?
when you were arrested.
Are you retarded?
No, I'm not
No,
I'm not the one here. Yeah.
That one tickles me.
How about when all the sheriff's deputies and detectives came in and said, get on the ground, so-and-so and so-and-so with their guns drawn?
Right.
How about that?
How about that?
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
Maybe
But he
that was
still
the
tries to
indication
come
that
up
you got
with,
caught a sting. Yeah.
I was looking for the.
Are you retarded? No,
Yeah.
sir, I'm not.
That really was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's send it over to Sean and get a couple more questions from the audience.
Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my phone around and show the time to Conrad. Can you zoom in on that, Conrad?
You got a message.
Yeah, I got it. Well, we're getting a lot of messages. This is live, and as much as I hate to spend 20 pounds mailing a shirt to Grant in the UK, I'm going to read his question. Where is this actually live? Not on TruBlu, or is it pre-recorded? Not going to lie, it's almost 1 a.m. in the UK. Let's not say live. What a waste of time. No, this really is live. We really did do a live production. We bought a bunch of equipment to do this, and we're going to do more of them. So, Grant, send your size. Because since I had to prove you wrong, you're going to get a T-shirt for it in the UK. So you can wear it to your next Premier Soccer League game and try and get our logo on TV.
Exactly.
We have a bunch of paid questions, so I really want to reward those people. So paid comment. Chris, you are so devoted. Does it affect you in any ways to witness all these awful things? You are so strong, and that's Natalie.
Well, Natalie, that's very kind of you. Thank you. And my co-host, as you know, is also my wife, and we talk about these things frequently. And I have developed pretty thick skin over the years, and the ability to compartmentalize this and to see the bigger picture. Sean, you and I joke all the time about what happens when we solve all the crimes for TruBlu in this country, and perhaps we could go join Stanley Tucci and do an Italian cooking show overseas or something. Sadly, I don't see that in my future, but I do think it's important. And it's interesting because the Predator franchise is maybe 10% of my portfolio. 10 Emmys, all of them are for other things. But yet this is what people know me for best. And so I feel a sense of duty to continue doing this. I never imagined 19 years ago that we'd still be doing it. Who would possibly show up after being exposed this way? Yet, because of the explosion in the number of social media platforms, and you guys both know this, there is more of this activity going on than ever before. And so our work becomes more important. We can't be everywhere. We try to do as many of these investigations as we can. They're edgy, they're risky, they're a little bit dangerous. We try to protect ourselves as much as we can. But it continues to create a dialogue and an awareness. And I hope and I pray that what people take away from it is a conversation that is age appropriate with their children to say, if you're connected to the internet, you could potentially be approached by an adult who wants to trick you. And it goes from there.
We do see a lot of those comments of how much you've helped on, in their own childhood, what they'll tell their own children. Like, we do see that, and that's...
Well, we're into our third generation of people who are watching this now.
Right.
And because of YouTube, because of the internet, and now because of TruBlu, we have our own network. We control the distribution of the content.
Right.
And we can set the agenda. And as we're going to talk about in a little bit here, we're doing many more investigations.
Right.
In addition to the Takedown Predator series. So there's a lot of great work going on here, and you know, I thank Sean for, you know, coming up with the idea to collaborate and do this all together, because I think it's a very powerful platform.
I agree.
Here's another question from overseas. Pepe 2580 paid 200 Swedish kronen to ask this question. Thank you very much, Pepe.
Those are my people
Must be
in
thankful.
Sweden, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for the work you do. It's kind of a follow-up to the last one. During many years of service you have done, do you ever talk to someone about what you've been through? I don't think I can handle it. I find it hard just to watch the show.
You know, the people who I talk to really are you, my two sons, our two oldest, are in the business. One's behind the camera, one's in front of the camera, a reporter in Orlando. And honestly, when I do the podcast, for instance, Predators I've Caught, where I go back over all the previous cases, it's therapeutic to me to go through the details of it, to relive it, and to figure out what has happened to the guy all these years later. Did he turn himself around? Is he still in trouble? What has happened? What lessons have been learned? So to me, honestly, doing the podcast is one of the most therapeutic things that I do. But I've always covered crime. I've always covered difficult subjects. You know, I've been around the world, you know, in India on, you know, child slave labor, Cambodia for sex tourism, Africa for, you know, financial predators. So to me, it's just a big adventure in which I can take on some really bad people, some predators, and in the course of that, educate some people and create a dialogue that could better prevent people from being victimized by predators. And that's it. And I'm okay with that.
And I would say, after your investigations, you do come home, decompress, do all the stuff without talking about any of it, you know, and just do normal life things.
Well, I think that's key. I mean,
Right.
you know, I don't live in a bat cave. I
Right.
mean, well, we have one bat cave.
Right.
That's in New York, Gotham City. But, you know, honestly, you know, I like spending time with you and our children. I enjoy cutting the lawn. I enjoy going to Costco. I enjoy cooking ribs on the grill. I mean, I have,
Right, it's all-
we live a pretty regular life,
Right.
considering what we do for a living, you know?
One last question. This is a little more of a fun one, but Spencer, also a paid question. That's a real great way to obligate us, by the way. I feel like I can't ignore,
Yes, it is.
can't ignore paid questions. This is regarding Jeff Sokol. Chris, why didn't you eat the pizza?
I was so blown away by the smarmy and unctuous attitude of Jeff Sokol. For anybody who doesn't know or needs a reminder, Jeff Sokol showed up in our Fairfield, Connecticut investigation in 2015. And he came to meet a 13-year-old girl. He had a marriage contract in his car. He had all kinds of cockamamie ways to protect himself legally. And he shows up with a pizza. And as you know, when the decoy asks the predator to bring something and he does, that's evidence. And so the Fairfield police, with which we were collaborating in that case, were monitoring the incoming predators. And my oldest son, Chase, was one of the camera crew on that particular investigation. And I said, where should we stop for pizza? Or where should we have the predator stop for pizza? And he says, well, Planet Pizza. It's because he went to high school right near there in Fairfield. And so sure enough, he stops in, gets the pizza, gets a small because it's almost as big as a large, and
Right.
it's cheaper, he says in the chat. But the Fairfield PD picks him up there. So now we know, not only has he got the pizza, but we know 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 where he's going to walk in. He walks in this red flannel shirt. He's got this pizza. And again, he's trying to mitigate his guilt here. And so do you mind if I eat? No, go ahead. Absolutely, have
But
at
he
it.
eats like that one really does annoy me the most.
It was
Because
nervousness,
he eats
I think.
it
but-
and eats it so disgusting.
Yeah, then offers me a piece.
Right.
Then offers the crew a piece as they come out. It was,
But he's going to keep eating like you're just going to have a little
what?
chit chat. Yeah.
It's just chat.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
just
gonna eat my
talk.
pizza, then I'm
Is
gonna
there anything wrong with that? Yeah, there's something wrong with it.
So you didn't eat it because it was just gross.
Well, we never eat anything that a predator brings. I mean, they bring beer, they bring cookies, they bring pizza, McDonald's, all kinds of fast food, milkshakes in the recent investigation. I'll tell you one quick funny story. We'll take a break.
Yeah.
One guy shows up in Ohio in the investigation that hasn't aired yet, and the way it happened, the police had to grab him, the sheriff's office had to grab him pretty early, and they had a milkshake in each hand. And it goes flying all over his face. It's got milkshakes all over the place.
It's good stuff.
It's one of the lighter predator moments.
Yes, it is. All right, we'll go back to Sean in a little bit here. Now we're going to move over to Monroe County. Monroe County, you had some pretty epic alleged predators that turned up in the investigation. The first one being Golf Cart Matt. Let's take a look at the clip of Golf Cart Matt.
The Sting House is set up and ready to go. The Viper team is in place and ready for the takedown. In all my years of doing predator stings, I've never seen a suspect make an entrance like this. Your eyes aren't deceiving you. This predator lives so close that he has just rolled up on a custom neon green golf cart.
Now, you can't make this up. Monroe County is in Michigan.
What were you guys thinking?
Well,
first, how did you start working with Monroe County Task Force?
Monroe County, the Viper Task Force, Monroe County is in the southern part of Michigan, almost at the Ohio border. One of the first sheriff's departments we worked with in the latest series is Genesee County, Sheriff Chris Swanson, which is near Flint in mid-Michigan. We'll get to that in a minute. But they become so proficient at these sort of human trafficking operations that they've been training other jurisdictions around the state of Michigan, around the country, actually.
Right.
So they collaborated with Monroe, and then we collaborated with Monroe, and they have a very good professional team, as you saw right there. We set up in a fabricated home community, a higher-end mobile home park, if you will, and it's a regular neighborhood. And the first guy, the decoys are chatting with, we can ping him.
Right.
And he's like 950 feet away. It's like, no, it can't be that close. Now, we've had people close before show up, but here he comes in his golf cart.
What was everybody thinking when he rolls up? And slippers on.
Yeah.
Slippers.
He's got his backpack and his beer and his, it just like, and he stops to talk to neighbors.
Yeah.
Before he comes in.
So comfortable.
Hey, howdy, neighbor. Now we're going to go meet a child for sex.
It was disturbing. I can't imagine what everybody's thinking when.
Oh, people are blown away, but at the same time, it's like, okay, we'll talk about all this later. Let's just get through it.
Yeah, right. What happened when he finally got in the house?
Well, he gets in the house and he sits down in the chair right next to the door, which presents a logistical problem because I'm coming from one side, the cameras are set up, the crews are everywhere. Kelly McClure, our senior producer, was there as well. And for security reasons, I get the chance in Monroe County to talk to the alleged predator first. If that goes sideways or he tries to leave or shows any signs of violence, I step back and the sheriff's deputies take over. Then I try to talk to him afterwards.
Right.
And so he makes me right away, as in he pretty much figures out who I am.
Right.
And so he gets antsy and he wants to leave, thinking that, okay, if he leaves now, he's not had sex with a child, he's good to go. Well, I go as far as I can to encourage him to go to the countertop and have a seat on the stool, and it's not working out. He's not buying it. So I step back, the deputies take over very professionally but firmly, and they settle him down. And then I get a chance to talk to him.
Right, so let's take a look at the next clip.
Hey, Matt. Gonna need you to sit over that stool right over there. Dude, please.
Please, I cannot do this right now, dude.
I need you to sit right over there.
I know who you are, but I'm not here for whatever it is.
Well, then you can tell me about it, but you gotta go now. Dude.
I can't. I know what's going outside. They're already here.
Who's here?
Is anybody here?
Who?
I'm just gonna leave, please.
You can't.
I have to, sir.
No.
Sir, I have to.
I'm Chris Hansen.
I know who you are, sir. I have to.
So how do you know who I am?
Because I've seen you on TV before.
Well, what are you doing here? Matt, you're here for a boy.
No. I don't know what's going on. Okay. I'm not doing that. Yes, I do, sir.
What does
Matt.
it say when alleged predator says that?
Well, he already knows what he's there for. He's, again, trying to make himself look better than he is. And these guys think about what the excuse is they're going to give long before they get to the house. Okay, if I get caught, what if this is Chris Hansen? What if it is the Monroe County Viper team? What am I going to say? Well, I'll just tell them that, I came by to hang out with the kid. And,
Right,
and I
hang
brought
out.
some
It's
beer.
always they're going to hang out.
Yeah, we're going to
Or
hang out.
warn them.
Warn them. I'm going to tell them that they're going down a bad path.
Right, right.
Which is essentially what he says to me next.
Right. So Golf Cart Matt, turns out, is a big fan. Check out what he says to Chris about his investigations.
What's going on right now, dude? I'm really freaked out. I don't know what's going on right now, dude.
Well, I can tell you what's going on. You had a sexually charged conversation with somebody who said they were 14.
On a legal website. Absolutely.
Yeah, but they said they were 14.
I didn't see that.
Oh, Matt. Do you know how many times I've heard that?
I absolutely know because I know who you are.
Okay, so
You're filming me right now.
you've seen my shows.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you think of those shows?
I think that you're doing a great job. I've seen you on a lot of other podcasts too. You do a great job. That's why I'm wondering what is going on right now.
Well, Matt, what's going on is you're going to be facing charges.
What is the update on Matt?
Matt is currently working his way through the court system, and a lot of these cases end up being plea agreements, and they have to register as a sex offender. Some go all the way to trial, and many face prison time. But Matt's still working his way through the system. But there's more to come in that particular investigation.
Good. All right, let's take a couple more questions. Sean?
Okay, another paid question, and I think I'm going to be the one to answer this.
Okay.
This is from CNJ Dev. Don't know where they're from, but any chance some To Catch a Predator content is going to be on TruBlu? All I can tell you is we want that to happen. We're trying quite a bit, but it's a really tough road dealing with very large corporations that are going through a lot of things right now, a lot of consolidation, mergers, sell-offs. So it's tough to even get a hold of the right decision maker. But we are attempting to do that for you so that we can centralize Chris's body of work, at least as far as it relates to predators. So we're trying, and you're going to find out soon that we acquired some other content when we make the announcement. So we're working really hard to expand what we have in our offerings for everybody. Let me give you a quick top 10 list. Since we had so many international questions, I won't start at 10. Well, maybe I will. I'll start at 10. I'm going to tell you the top 10 countries for TruBlu subscribers. Now, you can watch the Predator Takedown content and our original content in any country. The movies that we have are limited to the U.S. only, so just want to let everybody know that. The 150 or so films. The number 10 ranked country and subscribers is Finland. The number 9 ranked country for subscribers is Germany. Ranked number 8 is Sweden, who we heard from. Number 7 is Ireland. Number 6 is New Zealand. Number 5 is a surprise, it's Japan. Number 4 is no surprise, Australia. Number 3 is no surprise, the UK. Canada is number 2, and the United States is number 1. So those are the top 10 markets in which we have subscribers for TruBlu. And we really appreciate those people subscribing around the world because we need the subscription money to keep producing these episodes. I'm going to give you one more top 10 list, and I'm going to give you one more question for Chris. People often ask, what are the most watched episodes? I can tell you number 10 is Genesee County Tom. Number 9 is Genesee County Michael. Number 8 is Semi-Truck Thomas. Number 7 is Polk County Fanboy, which you highlighted. Number 6 is Good Deed Dave. Number 5 is Sing the Savior. Number 4 is Genesee County Sean. Number 3 is Genesee County Dump Truck Guy. Number 2 is the instant classic Golf Cart Matt that you just saw. And number 1 is Gloryhole Jerry, Matt's cellmate in Monroe, Michigan. So those are those are the top 10 most watched. And now let me get a comment for Chris. Do you think there was ever a predator you've caught where it really was their first time? There has to be a first time for everybody, even if it's not the time they're caught. That's In Your Face New Yorker. Thank you for paying to ask that question.
In Your Face New Yorker. I have to believe that out of the hundreds of predators I've caught, that yes, there has to be some percentage of guys who were just unlucky enough to get caught the first time. But I know empirically, I know from law enforcement all over the world that if you've done it and gotten caught, it's not your first time down that track. I mean, these guys know what social media platforms to go to, the grooming. I mean, it's like there's a template out there where these guys go and learn how to break down the barriers in society between children and adults. I mean, it's shocking to me, and it's the same template. And you see it in virtually every case, including the next one that Sean mentioned.
It's a good segue,
Gloryhole Jerry.
Let's take a look at the clip of Gloryhole Jerry.
Vehicle's off.
Mommy! Hey, what's up? What in?
How's it going?
Good, what's up?
What?
Hey, hold on, I forgot my charger real quick.
Oh, you're fine. So
Sorry.
You swear nobody's gonna be coming in?
No, my mom's at work still. She'll be home
When
not
did you
till like
have to
7 in the morning.
Right there, please.
Okay.
Have a seat. So what are you up to tonight?
Not much.
What's your plan?
Just meeting him.
Meeting who?
Him.
Who is it?
Travis.
Travis. And what's your name?
Jerry.
Jerry. Jerry, where did you come from tonight?
The other side of the park.
Right in this neighborhood?
No, the other side of the park.
The other side of the park.
Yeah.
And how did you meet Travis?
What do you mean, how that meeting?
How did you meet him? How did you find out that you should
He was on Grindr.
on Grindr? And what was the discussion on Grindr, Jerry?
I'm not.
No, Jerry, you can't leave here.
Jerry makes a run for the door.
No, please, you're under arrest.
But the Viper team doesn't let him get far.
Now, what was particularly disturbing, well, there's a lot of disturbing things about
Yes,
Jerry, as you know.
as we
because
go
you know
on,
the story.
yes.
But he first went online posing as like an 18 or 19-year-old. So he's appealing to a boy and pretending that he's not that much older. In fact, he's got a picture that he uses of a, handsome-looking teenager that he tries to lure the young teenager into a meeting with. And then he goes on, the reason why we call him Gloryhole Jerry is because in the chat he talks about wanting to use a glory hole, which is a hole in a wall for anonymous sex, with a child. And we get into this with him in the interview, and his admissions are very, very alarming.
It's graphic. It is, and I think it's an epic moment. And we'll see in the next clip, he gets cuffed and says he has back surgery, and goes through this whole dramatic thing. We'll see it next in this clip.
Jerry, there's something you need to know.
Oh, my back.
Jerry,
What?
I'm Chris Hansen.
I know who you are.
How do you know who I am?
Oh, because I've said I would never do this and I did it anyway.
Why did you do it, Jerry?
Because I'm stupid.
Yeah, stupid and also criminally active.
Oh, yeah. This one is very disturbing to me, and the whole glory hole thing. And I'm not sure. I didn't know, but that part of it. Is disturbing.
Very disturbing. And then he's taken away.
Right.
And on the ride, go ahead.
Let's take a look at the next clip, and we'll see what he has to say at the end. It's good.
Do you have a glory hole in your home?
No,
Why did you say it then?
because I would have made one, but not for him.
Wait, you said you would have made a glory hole for this boy.
No, not for the boy.
Well, that's what you said, Jerry.
That's not what I meant.
Sounds like Jerry is starting to get angry.
You're trying to get me all up now, and I'm not doing it.
Jerry, have you seen my shows before?
Yes.
What did you think of those shows?
How stupid the people were?
Did you ever think you'd be on one of those shows,
No,
Jerry?
because I'd never wanted to do anything like this before in my life.
So Jerry just wakes up one day and decides he's going to do this, which I don't buy.
No.
But the great addition to the story is that as the detectives are taking him away to the Monroe County jail, he says, you know, it's a good thing you're doing this in this neighborhood because there are other guys like me. In fact, there's one guy who drives around in a golf cart and tries to meet kids. Well, that's Golf Cart Matt, who we busted the day before.
And aren't they sharing a cell right now?
When they locked him up, they were.
Or they were,
yeah,
right.
I think
right.
they're out on bond now.
Right. So that's the update on him. And he was sentenced for 5 years probation, something like that.
Yes. So 5 years probation, and he's on the radar of local authorities. So he's got to report. He's got to answer questions. They know where he is. And if he does engage in this activity again, he'll go to prison.
Right, right.
So we've seen it happen where they offend again. Let's hope that Gloryhole Jerry will not.
Right. I think that was the last clip we had on Gloryhole Jerry, or was there one more?
I think that was it.
Okay, all right. I think next we'll take it to some questions from Sean.
Great. Kayla Nadeau said, Chris, and she paid. Thank you, Kayla. Chris, do you feel through the interrogations that you've had with all of these predators over the years, you have an answer or part of an answer for the question, why do these guys do what they do?
I'm still at a loss to understand why an adult wants to have sex with a child. I just don't get it. I think these guys, the best I can tell, break down into three different categories. The hardcore sexual offender who's wired this way will do this no matter what. You'll find the kids at the Little League field, the food court at the mall, or the movie theater. They have to be incarcerated for life. There's a younger subset, opportunists who are socially inept, who will try to meet a younger girl or boy because that's the only way they can do this is online. Those guys can probably get treatment, monitored, and maybe not offend. But there's this group in the middle that really vexes me. And you've heard me talk about this, Gabriel. The guy who's predisposed to have sex with a child, but wouldn't have acted on it without the internet, the addictive nature, the 24/7 access, and the anonymity. And somehow, somewhere, these guys cross this line from fantasy to reality, and we see them knocking on our door. Would they have sex with a child if a child was there? Absolutely. And we've come across cases where guys have admitted to this, and we are going to see this in our upcoming Ohio investigation. But that's the one that's hard for me to tell whether or not these guys can be, reprimanded, punished, and then never do it again. Some can and some can't. And we honestly don't spend enough time thinking about the big picture and understanding that these guys aren't all cut from the same mold. Right. They're different. And we want one-size-fits-all solutions, and they don't exist when it comes to this. And demand reduction, it's not like the drug problem. The demand is always going to be there. So the best defense is the wall you build informationally around your child.
Right, I agree.
All right, we've got a couple questions that are very similar, so I'm going to combine them. Kimberly said, have you caught female predators? And MLW said, can you tell us anything about the women predators who were caught recently? This might be a good time to talk about the episode we dropped right before this began.
Just this evening, we have an episode that's gone up on TruBlu about a case that occurred in Oregon. A 13-year-old boy, Tristan Wade, was abducted, essentially, by a 24-year-old woman who was pretending to be younger and hanging out with kids, going to parties and claiming that she was 14, 15, 16 years old. And she was able to convince this 13-year-old to come with her and he was missing for 5 days and 5 nights. The mother, who I interviewed, Brittany Wade, and you'll see this on the story in TruBlu, takes me through this horror and this frightening experience. She had never gone without talking to her child, the 13-year-old boy, for more than, a half a day. And suddenly he's missing. So they're tracking this girl, this woman, grown woman, through social media. The police get involved. It was originally taken from a town about 90 minutes outside of Portland, and they find the boy and the woman in a shopping mall. She had sold the boy's phone for $180, and they were living under a bridge in a homeless encampment. She's now charged with sexually assaulting the boy, and she's being held on a number of other charges as well. But it's frightening.
I mean,
yeah, it's not the official charge is not kidnapping, although it's parental interference, which is taking. In other words, the boy initially went willingly, but he's 13. He can't give consent for any sexual contact or any kind of inappropriate interference on the part of an adult. And so you have this new category of female predator that we've never seen before. Mm-hmm. Typically in our investigations, we don't see predators, female predators. We see those scenarios with the teacher-student type predator most often.
Okay, and I want to make a quick announcement. Most of you realize that although a lot of you sign up on the web, you use iPads, iOS, Fire Sticks, Roku, tvOS to watch our platforms. People with Samsung TVs have been having the Chromecast, and we wanted to let you know that we just struck a deal to add Samsung's operating system to TruBlu. So those people with Samsung TVs, we'll make the announcement in 2 or 3 months when it's up and running, but you'll have a TruBlu app as part of your Samsung TV. And that's an awful lot of you, so that's pretty big news for us.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great. Good news. Okay, good. All right, thanks, Sean. We'll come back to you in just a little bit. Now let's go to Genesee County, Michigan. And Chris, you have had a long relationship with Sheriff Swanson. How did the two of you meet?
Sheriff Swanson and I got to know each other during the pandemic and right after the George Floyd incident. And, he's the sheriff in Genesee County, mid-Michigan, which encompasses Flint, which is a kind of a rough city in some spots. And in Flint, like so many other cities across the country, there were protests against the police killing of George Floyd. And during one of the protests, the sheriff took off his helmet, climbed off the official armored vehicle, and marched peacefully with the protesters from where they were to the city hall. Video of this went viral. Sheriff Swanson was on every television show, every social media platform in the world, including my YouTube channel, Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. And we got into a discussion about human trafficking. He had formed the GHOST team, Genesee Human Oppression Strike Team, and we shared a similar passion. And so we collaborated, starting a few years ago, with their GHOST team, great group of men and women at the Sheriff's Department there in Genesee County who do this work. And just recently, we were out again with them.
Yes.
And you've seen the results.
Let's talk about that. The alleged child predator shows up in the investigation, Dr. Pedric Jaswall. What can you tell us about him before we show the clip?
This is a 61-year-old doctor who spent his day in Saginaw, Michigan, seeing 18 patients and texting a teenage girl in a highly sexualized conversation in which he sent a picture of his genitals, all while treating 18 patients, a family practice. So he's treating, potentially, many girls of the same age of the target, the victim here. And he gets into graphic detail about, I want you to call me daddy. I will blank you hard if you call me daddy. He wants to know about the girl's braces and how they will affect her performing oral sex on him. Then he shows up with Oreos and red wine. And the Oreos being stuck in her braces are part of his fantasy.
Let's take a look at this clip.
Hi.
Yeah.
How are you?
All right.
What did you bring?
Coke.
What was it?
Coke.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Some cookies.
Oh, those are my favorite, double stuff.
What he does next is alarming, outrageous, and it concerns both me and the Ghost Task Force.
Yeah.
Okay.
In this Takedown instant replay, look again as Dr. Jaswall follows the ghost decoy and gets right down to business, grabs her behind. And I don't think he was planning on performing a routine checkup on the decoy either.
Absolutely stunning, and caught him a fourth criminal charge of assault there. I mean, that's battery, that's
Right.
sexual battery there.
What was the reaction when you guys saw that?
Well, it was hard to see initially.
For
because
you, but for them.
me, for everybody on there
When they saw it.
was just absolutely outraged and offended that he would be so brazen as to do this. Now, he's had the conversation coming in, we're watching, and after he does that, the next part of the video shows me coming out behind him, and it's like, you know, the Jaws movie with that music, dun, 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 because he's about to get
Right.
leveled.
Right, and we'll see that next clip. The predators don't realize you've seen the chats. They don't always realize that. It's surprising to us, but is it surprising to you that this isn't playing?
Well, they think that nobody has seen the chats. Again, it plays into the anonymity of
right.
the internet that we talked about just a few moments ago. They think that this is all secret and private and nobody's got it. Well, we've got it all. And in fact, before he even gets there, I've interviewed the detective who was posing as the girl.
Right.
I've got the whole thing.
It's disturbing. Let's take a look at the next clip.
You sent a picture of your penis?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
He admits to sending a graphic photo, a picture of his own penis.
You do this often?
No.
So today, for the first time, a medical doctor decides to send a picture of his penis to someone who says they're 15. What, are you going to come over here and give her a medical exam?
No.
How do you justify that?
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad.
Let me remind the doctor of the chat with someone he thought was a 15-year-old girl.
I will bang you good, baby. You said
Yeah, I mean, this is all. Obviously, you know, when you hear all these things, then it's kind of a bad.
Why did it sound bad to you when you were saying them?
Because once you are, you know, in a situation like that, you get carried away.
You get carried away. Oh, here's a man who's highly educated, a man of means. He rolls into the driveway of our Sting house in a Range Rover, well-dressed, and there's talk of him giving the girl money. Now, he admits, ultimately, that he's met other young women online for sex.
Right.
And as we're doing this interview, my sound man has recognized the name, and his sister is in the medical world and starts looking through Facebook. So by the time we finish the interview, we've already got his Facebook profile. And we know from the chat what he's been up to. But it's far from over.
Right. Let's take a look at the next clip.
He gets a little unsteady on his feet.
Yeah.
So, is this the phone that you...
6'9".
Oh, you're okay. You're okay.
Here you go. Take a
Whoa.
seat.
Even the Ghost Task Force isn't buying the doctor's antics.
Ooh. Hey,
Ooh.
take a breath.
Ooh.
There you go.
Oh, I'm having. Ooh.
Just take a breath. Okay, that's not normal. That means you're acting.
Relax. Oh my God.
And we got a medic on the way, so he'll take
Oh
you
my
okay.
God.
Cool off.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We'll get this coat slipped down just a little bit.
Going through a lot of emotion.
Cool you off a little bit here.
Ooh.
Nope. You keep leaning forward there on purpose.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you made it. It's a
My dear,
mistake.
my friend, I'm a doctor.
I know, you made
I'm
a big
not
mistake. And I'm going to try to take care of it. Okay?
I'm not acting.
Okay.
I'm just having some chest pains.
Okay.
We're gonna
Oh
get
my
that taken
God.
care of in just a second.
Yep.
We got a
Oh
paramedic
my
coming
God.
in.
We had a
Oh.
paramedic coming to take a look at you right now.
Oh my God.
You go ahead and sit down.
Oh my
Go ahead
God.
and sit down, Doc.
Oh my.
Sit down, Doc.
Bend your knees.
My knees, my back is killing me. Oh my God.
Just lean forward just a little bit.
Ooh.
Mitch, come on.
Oh my God.
He seems to snap out of it and even starts arguing with the detectives.
Criminal, why my hands are tied? African
It's just-
citizen
it's
of
just-
this
it's
country
just-
forever.
It's just precaution.
I'm very respectable man. You know that.
As if.
Did you think it was an act?
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. And look, he's caught in a bad situation,
Right.
trying to do something very bad, very illegal, life-altering to a child. But you've got to respond appropriately. And the sheriff's office did. They had a medic there. And all of a sudden, you know, when they're giving him an exam, he's okay.
The officers are always so respectful.
Well, they are,
They-
because they
you know.
follow the rule of
Yes.
law. They follow
Yes.
the proper ways to gather evidence. They're under a microscope on these cases.
Right.
Any defense lawyer is going to
Right.
try their best
Right.
to pick these apart. But the law enforcement agencies with which we work have this down to a science.
Yeah, that one was really disturbing as well.
Oh, yeah.
Sean, we have some more questions.
First of all, I want to thank Skunk Labs. They just made a paid comment saying if we're ever doing an operation in New Jersey, they'll support us with their studio. So that was very nice of Skunk Labs. Chris, let's get we've got 100 of these, so let's just get it out of the way.
Sure.
CNJ Dev, his second question that he also paid for. Chris, would you collab with others who catch predators? And he gave some examples that we're not going to promote here. They do amazing work and work well with various police departments. Now, there's this idea out there that you can't stand these guys and have all this animosity, and I know that nothing's further from the truth. Why don't you actually break it down?
Well, I do have a lot of respect for citizen journalists. And citizen journalists have created a lot of awareness, have helped expose a lot of crimes. That's the beauty of social media platforms like YouTube and
Right.
other places. Crowdsourcing information on crimes through podcasts and other platforms have created justice, have solved crimes that have gone unsolved for many years. There's a real important place for citizen journalists in our society. But I can tell you that some of the vigilantes engaging in exposing child predators online create a situation where, at least in the eyes of prosecution and law enforcement, they won't touch the cases.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of these are good cases that should be prosecuted.
Right.
And they go unprosecuted because these vigilantes make prosecutors nervous, and they make law enforcement nervous. And they create a lot of collateral damage to investigations that are done by law enforcement. And so I know of no one in law enforcement who advocates what the vigilantes are doing.
And they've told you this. You guys have this
I speak
conversation.
at conventions in law enforcement gatherings
Right.
and journalistic gatherings
Right.
all the time.
Right.
Now, again, I'm not taking anything away from some of the vigilantes who are trying to do the right and noble thing. And I know they're out there, but I have no need or desire to collaborate because we have our own way of doing things that result in virtually 100% conviction rates.
Right.
So I don't wish anybody any ill will. I don't think they're necessarily all motivated by just making money on YouTube. Some are, some aren't. But we do it our way, and we do it in a way where these alleged predators are always prosecuted, virtually always.
And it's much safer, I feel like.
I think it's a better way to operate. But that's
It's a good question, though. We get that
that's
a lot.
We get
yes.
it all the time.
Yeah.
And people on social media, I mean, some of these guys are out there, some who even steal my last name to use it
Yes.
for
Yes.
their image. They create hate wars and why do you do hate on my guy? And I'm not doing hate.
No one, yeah.
But you know,
amongst themselves, they create a lot of.
I'm not saying I'm the only guy who's doing good investigative journalism out there, but I'm very comfortable with the way we do it, and probably not going to change.
Right.
There's no reason to.
There's the answer.
Couple more quick ones. Emmanuel Zapata, thank you for paying to write a question. Do you ever look back? Now this is funny, because we marvel as a production company that's done hundreds of hours of television before we even joined forces with you. We marvel at how perfect your lines are, and we can't imagine them being any better. But Emmanuel Zapata writes, do you ever look back on your Sting videos, past and present, and just think, I could have said something a bit more clever or humorous?
Oh, sure. I try to improve every time I do an interview. I was at the New York Police Department yesterday doing an interview on a whole different investigation we have. And I try to outdo myself every time. But yeah, there are a couple times where I've seen opportunities like, oh yeah, I should have done that. But I pride myself on being pretty quick on my feet.
Yeah.
You know, and I think these things through.
Any you want to talk about now that could have been a better?
None that I can think of offhand, and I know that sounds a little.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Full of myself, but I think pretty much, and it goes back to something I learned many years ago, and something I preach to young journalists all the time, which is the best interviewers are good listeners. Mm-hmm. There's no rush to ask the question.
Right.
You don't need to be looking down at your notepad. You need quotes when you're confronting a predator,
right,
so you can put them back in their face.
Right.
But listening.
It's more important.
Let them hang themselves.
Right.
Which they more than often do.
It doesn't hurt that you have the skill set of an improv comic.
Yes, it's true. It's
Got
true.
one more quick one, and it's a great question from Shin Vin. Chris, what was your favorite excuse that a predator has made that you just rolled your eyes at?
Gosh, that's about a 100-way tie for first, as I'd like to say, but. I think it still is, I just came here to help this girl or boy, to teach them that what they were doing online was wrong. And I was going to sit with them and protect them until the parents got home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everything they've done contradicts that. The chat contradicts that.
Showing up is showing
chat is chat, showing up is showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some very clever excuses over the years, but none that I've ever bought.
Mm-hmm.
There's no mistaken identity here. We've got the IP address.
Right, right.
We've got the ID.
Right.
Most of the time we know the background of the guy before he shows up.
Right.
Let's sneak one more in.
Yeah.
Carlos Ortega Elizalde in Mexico paid 250 pesos to ask this question. Thank you, Carlos. Hi, Chris. Lots of people still binge watch over and over old and new episodes, memorizing entire lines, etc. Why do you think this type of content is so addictive to your fan base? I'm one of them. Greetings from Mexico.
Well, thank you for that. I think it's because we take people inside the commission of a felony. They see things they don't see anywhere else. And it's a combination of good enterprise reporting, and this collision of good and evil, and unmistakably, the destruction of a criminal's deed. Suddenly he goes from thinking, oh my God, my fantasy is going to come true, to, oh my God, I'm facing Chris Hansen in the Genesee County Sheriff's Office or the Polk County Sheriff's Office. And it's just an amazing moment to see this person either try to lie their way out of it, collapse, and just confess, or fight.
Right.
And it's human drama.
Right.
And it's something that creates awareness. And I think that, the thing Sean brought up about having a sense of humor about it, look, you can't deny there are darkly humorous moments here.
Oh, right.
I mean, you got a guy who shows up in a golf cart.
Yeah. And slippers.
And slippers. And it's talking to me, dude, you can't do this. Is an inconvenient time for me. Well, yeah. Well, guess what?
When you start saying dude back is what really gets
my dog's got to be fed. Well, you should have thought about that before you took your little golf cart over here and your slippers, your slide-ons to come have sex with the child.
Right. All right. Genesee County has been very successful in capturing child predators, including one that showed up in one of your investigations, Todd Barako.
Oh.
Give us a brief description, and then we'll show the first clip.
He shows up St. Patrick's Day a year ago. Okay. And we don't know who he is. We know he's been chatting as John with a teenage boy, very sexually graphic. So he shows up, and he gets spooked right away. Tries to bolt. The sheriff's deputies and detectives grab him, and now it's my turn to talk to him. And he's brought a tube of lubricant after a sexual conversation.
I think
take a
we
look.
see that. Let's take a look at the clip.
John. 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 You came over here, John. And when you did that,
Nope, there's cameras right there.
I know there's cameras everywhere, John. John, no, you can't. You don't. You're not in charge here, John. That's the problem.
I came to hear something perfectly legal.
No, you didn't. There was a discussion online about being 15, John. The cameras aren't going to get turned off, so that's not on the table. It's not on the table.
Don't get up, please.
Well, you don't have to authorize it because we're here covering the commission of an alleged felony.
No.
Yeah. So I've seen the transcripts. The person you were here to meet said they're 15. You acknowledged.
No, I did not.
Yeah, you did.
No, I did not.
John, I have seen the transcripts.
Why do you think he shut down so quickly?
Because of what he did for a living.
Okay, let's show the next clip on the.
What is this, John? Explain this. Help me to understand what you were thinking here. Okay, no, you got to sit down.
No,
yeah, you do.
On camera,
Well, you don't have a choice here, John.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't, actually.
Right.
No,
I'm
you
an
don't.
attorney.
You do not.
An attorney.
All right? There's something you need to know.
Okay.
I'm Chris Hansen, and you know the rest.
Right.
So
He shuts down.
he shuts down. He's really snotty with me. And they take him away, and I turn to the crew, and I say, this guy is in a position of authority. He's either a corporate executive, a city council president, or a cop. And sure enough, Genesee County Ghost Team searches his vehicle, 3 guns, handcuffs, and his police credentials. He is an active police officer in a small mid-Michigan town. His name is Todd Barako. And that story is far from over. He pleads guilty. And then after they do an examination of his phone, they find thousands of images of child pornography, including videos of toddlers being raped. And I won't get any more graphic than that, as if that's not graphic enough. It's horrible. And every time somebody views one of those images, it's the re-victimization of a child. So they go out and arrest him again. And now he's looking at serious prison time, as he should. And you know what he's concerned about?
What?
After they book him?
What?
I need my other phone back. Oh, you're not getting that phone back.
So all this is going through his head, knowing.
Right. And, you know, Sheriff Chris Swanson, who's very proactive, wants to get the word out.
Right.
Because there might be other victims out there.
Probably.
You know, and then we find out in our subsequent investigation that he has harassed other people who tried to reprimand him in other jobs as a police officer. And he worked as a juvenile probation officer. So what do you think happened there with a guy like this? We may never know, but he's in trouble now.
Yeah.
For
Good.
real.
Good. All right, Sean, some more questions?
Yeah, here's one from Henry Blue, someone we're familiar with. He said, hey, how come you're starting your 4th season of Takedown, but there are only 4 or 5 episodes, full episodes for free on TruBlu's YouTube page? I'm going to answer that.
Did Henry pay for that question?
No.
He's going to.
He's my son, so he doesn't have to pay. So what people have to understand is that these are very expensive to make. They're 35 people working here, and YouTube does not monetize our content. So you're really helping us when you subscribe. So we put up good episodes. We put up maybe every 5th episode so fans can stay connected. But we hope at some point they see the value of the 30 episodes now in the library and the new episode that we release every week. And we've got a lot of operations coming. Another question that we have from multiple people is, when are you going to come to fill in the blank? We're working on a lot of other agencies right now. So just wanted to let you know that that they're coming. We're trying to do things in all 50 states, and there's a process with these folks. And Chris, you can speak a little more to that, and then I'll follow up with one more.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we're in communication with a lot of law enforcement jurisdictions, and we're doing a lot of different stories, not just the Takedown Predator franchise. So every day I'm out there working on, if it's not a takedown, it's another investigation, and we're going to talk about one of them coming up next in this show.
Yeah.
Peter Pedric. But yeah, we're just getting started here. And one of the other aspects of the takedown investigations, the predator investigations, is we work so closely with law enforcement that it opens us up to a lot of different stories. When I was sitting doing an interview at NYPD yesterday, I became aware of 2 other incredible stories, which we will be doing very soon on TruBlu. Mm-hmm. So it's 40 years of experience and trust that I built with law enforcement across the country, and people who are knowledgeable about these scams. LexisNexis, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, all these groups are part of TruBlu now in terms of developing content people need to see.
Okay.
Take another one?
Yeah, I'm going to give you one more. Pepe, since you paid, he said, say hey to Chris Swanson from me, if you remember. And Kevin Kerr said, well, I guess we'll plug it for him. We haven't checked it out, but check out Veterans for Child Rescue documentary, Contraland. So thanks for your support, guys. We'll let you move on to the next segment, guys.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sean. So there's a special episode on Takedown entitled Social Media Monster about Peter Pedric. When and how were you first made aware of this case?
In the course of doing the takedown investigations in Genesee County with Sheriff Chris Swanson and his team, we became aware of a truly horrifying case. And this guy, Peter Pedric, is being accused of being literally a social media monster. Mm-hmm. So a call comes in of a girl, 12-year-old girl, who's treated at a hospital emergency room for traumatic injuries associated with a sexual assault. Girl is 12. Now, it turns out that she was groomed by a man in Florida on Instagram.
Right.
And he develops a trust, a relationship, an offer of money. He flies from Florida to Michigan, is following the family.
Because the child is with the family.
The child is with the family through a Walmart, texting, because this goes from Instagram to texting, saying things like, meet me in the family restroom, we can make out there. Well, that doesn't happen, but he's in the Walmart. And in the store, you can check it out on TruBlu, you can see these texts, and they're truly chilling. Well, subsequent to that, he convinces the 12-year-old girl to climb out her bedroom window, meet the predator, the social media monster, in a church parking lot. He takes her to a hotel, and you see the video, the surveillance video in the hotel of him taking her in and to the room and viciously violates her.
Let's take a look at the clip.
That physical interaction happened February 2022. Peter Pedric flew from Florida to Detroit, Michigan, where surveillance footage captured him in the early morning hours.
He convinced her that he would fly up and he would meet her at a parking lot, at a church parking lot, at midnight. He had already gone to a hotel, which is in the area off of Pearson 75, rented the room. We knew what time that was. We had the surveillance videos. Then he came back, picked her up, took her back to the hotel. We have him walking down the hallway. She's a little tiny 12-year-old girl. 12-year-old. Gets her in the room, and he's with her for 4 hours. And full sex, oral sex. He's videoing the whole thing, and he's teaching her, told her what he wanted her to wear, how he wanted her to do her hair, grooming. And he said, if you do this, I'm going to pay you with crypto money for gaming.
Haunting.
It truly is. And I mean, it's seeing her led into the hotel and the way she's walking like a 12-year-old girl.
She's a kid, a child.
Yeah, it is. It's heartbreaking. It's so disgusting. You know, I mean, it almost makes you want to cry when you see that.
And if you don't think it could get any worse, it does.
Let's take a look.
Have you met with anyone else that's under? There was okay, Peter. There were 2 others. Were they here, or did you go to Washington State? Oh, yes. One was in Washington State, and the other one I drove to Oregon. How old were they? 16 and 14, 15. You guys had sex up there? Yeah.
So he confesses to 3.
Yes.
Do you think there's more?
I have to wonder that. Mm-hmm. You know, what else is out there? Now, these detectives went from Michigan to Florida, found him, staked him out, and you see all of this in the documentary we produced for TruBlu. Right. I encourage people to check it out.
Yeah, it's
and these detectives took videos of everything they did along the way. Mm-hmm. And it is one of the most compelling pieces of television I've ever been involved with producing. Yeah. And we owe a lot of this to the Genesee County Sheriff's Office and the detectives and the captains and the sheriff himself and everybody who worked on this case. I mean, this guy would still be out there doing this.
Right.
He's already ruined 3 lives that we know of, and we don't know what else he's done.
Are there any updates on him as far as?
He is in jail. He was not able to bond out, and you know, they continue their investigation to see if there's more out there, but his trial is still pending.
Yeah, it is chilling. Sean, we'll take some more questions, but I think we also need to mention that Sean just is not our question asker. He is the co-founder, executive producer of TruBlu. And ask the questions, then let's ask how you guys met and how TruBlu came to be.
Okay, you want me to answer that afterwards?
Yes, okay. Yes. I don't want to forget, though.
Okay. Let me address some common questions here. Will we be doing more episodes? We will never stop doing episodes, never. We can assure you of that. There are many in the pipeline right now. Some are waiting to be cleared by the prosecutors. Others we're just working through the pipeline as far as editing them. But we're never going to stop giving you TruBlu episodes. Very, very rarely will there be a Thursday when you don't have some kind of new episode. The other thing is, again, I just want to repeat an email address, give you a new email address that's simpler. If we asked a question, we owe you a t-shirt. Send your size and your mailing info to info@watchtrueblu, TRUBLU.com. This one is from a TruBlu subscriber named Will. Hi, Chris. I just want to let you know that I work at a middle school and kids still say things like, Chris Hansen is going to show up when an older kid creeps them out. How do you feel about that?
I'm honored, actually. I think, you know, it's funny. People ask all the time about, you know, were you bothered by the fact that South Park did a Chris Hansen episode? And no, not at all. I mean, you know, the older kids went to a high school with kids whose dads did a lot of cool stuff. So being on television was a big deal. But when South Park did a Chris Hansen Predator parody, suddenly I was the coolest dad around. Right. But look, anything that continues to create awareness and dialogue, I see as a positive. And so, yes, in pop culture, it is iconic, and there are memes all over the place. And every time something bizarre happens, you know, my face is put in it in terms of, you know, the Dalai Lama or whatever else happens.
Right.
But this has also created an opportunity, and Sean knows this, and you know this, and I hope our audience understands this too, that we have access to do stories and take people inside a world so they can see things they wouldn't normally see and hear things they wouldn't normally hear. And we have that ability based on all those years of doing the predator investigations and so many other things. You know, that gives us an open door and the ability to do these other incredible documentaries that we have coming up. The Facebook Fiend, Tracy Hutsana Con Woman,
Right.
Sextortion.
Right.
And there are literally dozens and dozens in the works as we speak.
Right.
It's never ending. And you know, thankfully, I've been given this opportunity because of my time in local news, my time at the network, my time at the syndicated shows and the other streaming platforms. But now we have the ability to not have to sit through A meetings and B meetings and green light meetings. I call the fellow on this screen and say, I need a crew on Thursday.
Yep.
And Conrad or Will or Zach or Mo or Stu or any of the great people with whom we work are there, and we do these things.
Yeah,
we know exactly what we need to do. We know what our audience wants, and we do it in lightning speed without all the bureaucracy. And we control the distribution of the content. And that is the beauty of TruBlu.
What's amazing about that comment is the middle schoolers are 11, 12, 13, and To Catch a Predator came out how long ago? It has lived on because of social media. So
we shot the first investigation in February of 2014.
Right.
You would hope with kids that age that it's more funny memes of you leaning into a picture
Yes.
than them actually watching old TCAP episodes.
Right.
Here's a question that's personal, but probably important. This is TruBlu subscriber Annalise Colvin, and she said, Chris, have your experiences over the years with these predators changed the way you raised your children and gave them access to the internet? If so, how?
Absolutely. You know, when we started doing the predator investigations, my guys are in high school already, so they're a little bit out of the danger zone.
There wasn't the amount.
And it wasn't as prevalent
Right.
as it is today, you know, and the younger ones who are 21 and 23, you know, they're sort of beyond that as well. But I would be very, very cautious, careful, and attentive for anybody. If they're on any internet platform connected at all, you must have a discussion with your child about what's out there without freaking them out. It starts with there are adults who like to trick children, don't get tricked. It starts there.
Right.
But if you're not monitoring a cell phone in the hands of a 12 or 13-year-old, you've lost the battle.
No, right.
That's just plain and simple.
Right.
And that's just not me saying it, it's every law enforcement official I know who monitors this very closely.
Right, and the conversation, constant conversation.
Okay, I'm going to do, let's see. All right.
While Sean takes a look there, we'll tell people, if they don't know already, how Sean and I met, which was at our home in Michigan in 2015, 16, I guess it was?
Yeah, we were filming the movie White Boy, which you can see on TruBlu. It's also on Netflix right now. It's a documentary about Richard Wershey Jr., who spent a lot of time in prison for a nonviolent juvenile drug offense. It was a total political payback. He was a political prisoner, and he's out now, thank God. But someone told me that Chris Hansen worked the case very heavily, and I was a huge Chris Hansen fan, and I said, well, there's no way we're going to get an interview with him. And Chris, you were gracious enough to invite us into your home, and Gabrielle made a spread like we were on a Hollywood set, and you did this key interview, and all of a sudden we had a star in our movie, which was just very kind and gracious of you. And it's a fantastic film, and you're enmeshed with the whole story, and that's where we met. But at that point, I'm like, well, here's my hero, who's doubtlessly saved lives and stopped crimes from being committed, which is activist journalism at its best, and investigative journalism at its best. So I wish I could help find a way to get involved with Chris in the future. And that's when the idea for TruBlu came up. Police shows started being canceled, and I was like, well, there's still a demand for these shows, and that's why we created this network.
Yeah, boy, that, it brings back memories, though, when we sat there and did that first interview on the White Boy documentary. I was a reporter in Detroit from 84 until 93, and I was the television reporter who broke that story. And it was amazing that this kid was 15, 16 years old, was an FBI informant, then became a cocaine dealer, white kid in a predominantly black business in Detroit. He had connections to the mayor's family and all these other people in the police force. And you need to watch the documentary to really understand what happened.
There's so many other things.
And he was sentenced to, under the, draconic
650 lifer law.
650 lifer law to life in prison. And he went away, and I covered the story for a long time, and then was part of Sean's documentary, White Boy. So if you haven't seen it, people need to go take a look at it. It's good.
Go on, Sean.
A New York Times reviewer, I believe, was the one who wrote, 20 minutes into the White Boy documentary, I realized the least interesting person in this documentary is Rick Wershey. I thought that was a great...
Kind of a compliment.
I'm glad he's out. I'm glad he's out.
But, so that was how you guys met, and then TruBlu, the conversations came up a few years later.
Well, Sean had his own very successful, film studio producing documentaries, Murder in the Park and others, and so he had done American Gospel TV, the most successful streaming network you've never heard of, unless you're, very curious about that world. And so the template was there, and Sean, came up with the idea of doing a crime streaming network, and it was perfect timing for me for a lot of different reasons. And quite honestly, I find this whole experience quite liberating to be able to have the freedom to do what I know people want from me. And to have a partner in this, in Sean Reck, and this wonderful group of humans we have here in our studio, you included, obviously, at the top of the list, to do this. It's for a guy like me who's been doing this 40 years, who's got a lot of energy in the tank, it's a dream come true.
It's very exciting.
It truly is. Yeah. I wake up every day energized, and I have a list that I make before going to bed on what I'm doing and who I need to talk to, and then I talk to this fellow and you, and we get it all going. And it's absolutely wonderful.
So, aside from Takedown, are all the other
great documentaries that are coming. And we get questions all the time. When are we going to see the Giovanna Kid story, or the Tracy Housana scam story? When are we going to see the Facebook fiend? All those are in editing as we speak, in a room not far from here, or in a studio in another state, where guys are busily putting these things together. Right. So we've got a lot of very compelling content, and every day it's like an idea factory around here, and it's a production house.
Exciting.
If we didn't answer your question online, we will answer your questions all offline. Just give us a couple of days to go through them. And we really appreciate the people who paid. I didn't even know that was a feature. But we want to say this too, a personal thank you to everybody who spends that $4.99 a month. A personal thank you, because that's the only way this is going to work. So we really, really appreciate your support. This is a startup. Nobody's getting rich. This is just to create quality programming for you. And it means so much to us, each and every one of you who has signed up for this network. And it's growing quickly, and we really appreciate that. Tell your friends, talk about it around the water cooler. We hope this network is worth it for you. If it is, please spread the word.
Well said.
All right, Sean.
Any other questions that we want to cover, or?
Back to work.
I think we're
back to work.
Back to work is right.
All right. And to my favorite co-host, thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you for including me. This was fun. We hopefully will do it again.
Watch TruBlu.com. Have a good evening. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
It's awesome. Good job.